The internet has drastically changed how people infringe on intellectual property. And it also has advanced the technology of how the copyright owners track their intellectual property. There's no notice that something is copyrighted, at least not on the face of the picture or the face of, on the song. I mean, nowadays for a lot of things, you can go right click on it, copy, paste, and you just got a copy. And I don't think a lot of people realize that that constitutes copyright infringement, because there's no requirement actually for a photograph that there be a watermark on it. A lot of times people will say, well, you didn't have a watermark on that image or on that movie, how can you sue me for copyright infringement? Well, pursuant to what's called the Berne Convention, which is what the United States entered into with multiple other countries around the world, they eliminated the necessity of having a watermark on an image in order to preserve your copyrights. The technology is catching up a little bit now, because the copyright holders now, in the metadata of the material itself, they can put ownership tags, as well as they can verify that a particular image, movie, song is in fact a duplicate because the metadata matches up. But because of the rampant infringement, the copyright owners improved their technology to kind of lock things so they can still display it, but it can't be stolen. And that was necessitated by the rampant copyright infringement that took place really in the 90s, where some major legislation was passed, including the DMCA, which is the Digital Millennium Copyright Act, because they had to do something or people would stop producing intellectual property. I mean, I'm not going to be a photographer, be a songwriter, be a movie maker, be a book writer if once I write it, everyone gets it for free. The state statutes, the one in particular that deals with copyright in Florida, which is 540.11, only deals with criminal violations. So only the Attorney General can bring a claim for a violation of that statute. In other words, as a civilian, I can't sue you under Florida Statute 54.11 and say you broke this law, because it's a criminal law. Just like as a civilian, I wouldn't be able to press charges against you for assault and battery. Only the state attorney does that. There is no state civil cause of action for copyright infringement. There's the civil side, and that is where the copyright owner, the person that owns the intellectual property, finds that someone is taking their intellectual property without paying them, without obtaining a license. Only the copyright owner or copyright holder can bring the civil action. That can only be done at the federal level. The reason for that is copyright, as you may recall, is referenced in our Constitution, and it is within the sole discretion of the United States government. So because of the supremacy clause of the Constitution, federal law deals with all copyright issues. Therefore, all civil copyright matters must be brought in federal court. In the civil context, one of the interesting things that's often difficult to prove in regards to copyright infringement are the damages. So how do you prove damages because someone looked at your video, or someone played your music or used your photograph? It's often very difficult to quantify those damages. That is why in the civil context, the United States Congress in 17 U.S.C. 504 said, well, even if you can't prove damages, we're going to allow for statutory damages, and those can range from $750 per occurrence to $30,000 per occurrence for unintentional infringers.
Colleges are held to a higher standard by the Higher Education Opportunity Act that says because we're a college, we have to put things in place to block illegal file sharing. It was recently updated. What the modifications in that law effectively did were raise the standard for colleges to block illegal file sharing. In a college, in an enclosed environment where the propensity for that type of activity is high, we are held to a standard of you must do something about this. We installed some things in our network that actually physically block these sites. And so the way the game works is these sites they're identifiable in the network equipment. So this network equipment knows what these sites are. When it sees traffic coming from these sites, it just shuts it down. We don't do a whole lot of monitoring unless something very anomalous comes across our screens. And so the people who sell us this stuff, that's part of what we pay for annually to maintain, is they're constantly updating their stuff. We are always looking for ways to protect the network. I mean, as a college, our network is subject to quite a lot of attack. So that was one thing. We were looking for better ways to manage our networks internally against bad traffic. Secondly, we were also looking for ways to better manage our network bandwidth, and so it allows us to manage that very tightly, so that we don't have to buy more than we need.